So hey guys, thank you for joining me tonight. We've got a lot to talk about. There's been some new announcements, firmware upgrades, we've had new releases of equipment and gear to talk about, and a lot of tips and tricks. So apart from that and the tripods a little later, what I'd like to do is start off with congratulating Nikon on a quick fix of a problem. So yeah, initially we had a new firmware upgrade for the Z8, and I had a video on that recently where a lot of new features were introduced. But many people have said since they've upgraded that firmware on the Z8 that lenses like, for example, aftermarket ones, which I have here to illustrate, I have some Viltrox, I have Tamron lens, that these ones weren't perfectly working as they should or were since that new firmware. And so there was some glitch or problem with the matrix there. So what they've done is they've released an update to that firmware. Instead of 3.00, it's now 3.01. And 3.01 has fixed those little problems, little quirky things that were going on with aftermarket lenses. There's nothing wrong with the Nikon lenses, of course. If you only have Nikon lenses, you wouldn't have noticed an issue. But for those who, like myself, who have some aftermarket equipment as well, they noticed that there was glitches in the matrix there. Things just weren't working perfectly. And Nikon heard about that and they got right onto it. And within a couple of weeks, they actually smashed it and got a new firmware upgrade that eliminated those issues. So now your aftermarket lenses, for example, like Tamron products, and let's face it, Nikon use a lot of Tamron related gear, that was a fix now and they're all working perfectly. Personally, I had no issue because I don't have a Z8, I've got a Z9 and a ZFC. So for me, the firmware was not relevant, but it could have been relevant in the future. So they got right on it, they know how to fix it, and it's not going to happen again. So 2 thumbs up for Nikon, well done fixing that in a hurry so people don't get frightened, put off or disappointed. So that's great. When things get fixed, you don't mind there's a mistake. We all make mistakes. But if you fix it straight away, no cost to anyone, well, you can't complain, can you? That's great stuff. So that was very positive and we're happy to hear about that one. So the next thing I'd like to talk to you about is like a tips and tricks, if you like. And that's relating to zoom versus prime. And we're not talking about quality of image. I'm not talking about sharpness. I'm not talking about all that sort of stuff. What we're talking here about really is that zooms can be underappreciated due to a specific fact, and that is 90% of zooms, and I'm not going to say all zooms because there's always an exception somewhere out there, but 90% of zooms actually give a closer focusing distance than a prime. Now, a perfect example of that, if we look at some Nikon products, for example, there is a 180 to 600 mil birding lens or wildlife lens, and at 600 mils it's 6.3. And it is a zoom lens, and it's a brilliant lens, very sharp, very high quality, and works perfectly well. Now, they also have Nikon, a much more expensive, about 3 times the price, 600mm PF. So that's a specifically 600mm. It's a prime, it's PF, it's very high quality, it's the S-line lens, so you know it's really good. But that one is 600 to 6.3. When you compare the two, I think the 600mm PF is maybe slightly sharper and probably has acquisition speed of autofocus a little bit quicker and maybe even a better stabilization system in it. But apart from those minor little things that are 5 or 10% here and there, basically the formula of the lenses is the same. But what is uncovered is that the zoom can focus in at 2.5 meters. So you get in physically closer where it's possible. You can't always get in really tight and close on birding or animals. Sometimes they get spooked and they go away. But when you could get in tight and close, you really have an excellent magnification effect which fills the frame beautifully. With the 600, for example, PF, and also the 600 f4, that's the TC lens, very expensive lenses, these primes will be over 3.5 to 4 meters is their minimum focal distance, depending on the lens and how it's configured. But generally, they're at least a meter longer to get in. So what that means is you have to get further back. You've made the image a little bit smaller. So it's just as 600 mil, 600 mil, 600 mil. But if you're not able to get in closer, you can't fill the frame as well. So is that relevant when you're 5 meters away from the subject? No. But when you do have the opportunity, and I very often get the opportunity to get close. In fact, I have some bird photos where the bird's actually coming towards me. I'm not having to go towards it. And I'm having to zoom out and actually come backwards because it's coming in so tight that I am losing minimal focus distance, even with the 2.5 meters that I get on my zoom. So having a closest focusing distance is a real bonus when it comes to shallow depth of field and it comes to filling your frame. So that's not to be underestimated with zooms. This Tamron lens has the same effect with these series of primes. Now that's a Tamron lens, it's a 35 to 150 zoom, f2 to 2.8, and I have some 1.8 primes here. And I did some tests, which I'll show you images of. And I found that I tried these sample tests at 35, 50 and 85 mil. Now I'm going to use the examples of the 50 and the 85 mil because that's the most average range that I use. And I took some test samples of that, and I could see that I could get so much closer in with the zoom. The focusing distance is so much closer than it is with the primes. Not because the focal length is any different, it's the structure of the lens and just how they operate. And that's to be really appreciated, because even though the prime is brighter, yes, it will be brighter, and sometimes they're very often sharper, especially wide open, the advantage of having been able to fill the frame and getting close on a subject and magnify it is really awesome and not to be underestimated, as I said earlier. So I wanted to go through people because a lot of people think it's all aperture. It's all about the aperture. You know, if you have an 85 mil but it's an f 1.4, that's so much better than having a zoom like this where at 85 it's 2.4. Oh, it's going to be so much better an image. Well, it will be a brighter image, but the fact that this zoom will get in about 20 to 30% closer means I'm able to fill the frame better. I'm able to get a better proximity, and that means better compression and a better bokeh. So the bokeh can actually be superior, believe it or not, on 2.4 on a zoom because you can get in closer and tighter than it can be on a prime at 1.8 or 1.4. That's sort of counterproductive in the mind. You sort of think, well, how can a brighter aperture have a worse bokeh or a harsher effect? It's the proximity. And this is what I want to talk to people about. Proximity oversteps aperture almost on every occasion, particularly when it comes to things like bokeh, shallow depth of field, and the general compression of an image. So this is why zooms are actually very, very awesome for that feature. Not only do you have versatility, not only now can you get them at a very decent aperture, but you can also get the fact that you can come in tighter, fill the frame, and have a beautiful bokeh and compression. I noticed also that lenses like, for example, the 780-200 2.8 from Nikon, the S-series lens, did the same thing. It would focus in at 2.5 meters, where other lenses, like for example, if you buy a 135mm 1.8, you have to ask yourself, well, what is the minimal focus distance of that? And you might be a bit shocked and start realizing that you're really not gaining much of anything. Yes, so yes, you get a brighter aperture, but at the same focal length on a zoom, you're able to get in just as close or closer, and therefore that 2.8 ends up rendering and looking like a 1.8. So I'm just putting it out there, guys. Don't underestimate the mighty power of the zoom for getting a beautiful and amazing effect. So I just want to bring that out, and I'm going to harp on it one more time just to make sure I bring the point home and nail it. Focal length can destroy aperture every time. Prefer focal length and proximity, being able to get in tight, as superior to just aperture alone. And understand also that aperture alone often means very expensive lenses. So you could be spending $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a prime to get this very bright aperture, only to find out that your 2.8 zoom can do exactly the same effect just by simply getting in tighter on the subject. So something to consider if you haven't thought about that and experimented with it. If you have some zoom lenses and you have a couple of primes of a similar focal length, play the game. Try and get in as close as you can on the prime to a subject. Try and get in as close as you can with the zoom. You compare the shots yourself, and I think you'll be surprised. I think very often the zoom either looks better or every bit as good as your wide open aperture primes. So something to consider. So the next subject I want to talk about was JPEGs versus RAW. A lot of people are obsessed with having the most dynamic range possible. They want their 12 to 15 stops of dynamic range, or they think that they've got a crap camera and everything's all wrong with their imagery. I just want to put it out there that I shoot with my Z9. I have 2 CF Express cards, and because of that I have the luxury of going raw if I wish to, because I have almost unlimited buffer and unlimited capacity of space. In fact, the memory cards I'm using at the moment, my primary card is a 2 terabyte memory card, and this backup is a 1 terabyte card. So that combined I have 3 terabytes, which is a huge amount of storage. So I have the luxury of having as much raw files as I want, should I want to. But don't underestimate the power of JPEG. That's all I'm going to say. When I'm knowing it's not a critical image, if I'm just having some hobby or fun photography, it might be with the family, the dog, out on the beach, having a holiday somewhere, I will probably transfer and shoot mostly just JPEG. Or at least when I get home, if I'm shooting RAW and JPEG as a backup, I'll just edit the JPEG files and leave the RAWs there as a backup in case there's a dodgy one I need that extra dynamic range for to clean it up. But you'd be surprised the difference between a RAW file and a JPEG file. When it comes to the editing, the end result can be almost undiscernible. And this is also when, of course, I'm in the context here of you getting it right in camera as best as possible. Now, no one gets it 100% right in camera. Very few people take a photo and just publish it straight away. Usually there is some form of editing. You might want to increase contrast or color or brightness or get rid of some highlights or so on in your Photoshop or your Lightroom. And that's quite reasonable to do that. There's no shame in that. Almost nobody, as I say, gets it right 100% in camera. But what I will say is this: if you can make the effort when you're taking photos, not to just rush it, leave it in auto and hope for the best, or leave it in manual and then not check your settings. You don't check your aperture, you don't just check your shutter speed, you don't check your ISO. You're just taking photos and then you go, oh, you get back and you go, oh no, look, they look like crap. Well, that's your fault. That's not the camera's fault, or nor is it the camera's problem to fix that. So please, take a breath when you're taking photos. Those 2 or 3 seconds won't destroy your images. Stop and have a look at your camera at the back of the screen and just check all your settings are perfect before you go ahead and take your photos and videos. And if you do that, you can comfortably shoot them all in JPEG and you'll still have a magnificent image to work with, because you're only adjusting the image now 5, 10, 15% on the sliding scales. You're not making a complete botch up of the image and then having to go into Lightroom or Photoshop and go 80% or more in your adjustments just to make it a half-decent photo. Making it a half-decent photo by having to adjust things 80% on the sliders is crazy. You're doing everything wrong. This is not the camera needing to have more dynamic range. This is you needing to breathe, pause, and actually getting all your settings right before you start taking photos and shooting. So, do we appreciate having a high dynamic range camera? Yes. Is it an amazing option to have a wonderful raw file which you can bring up and it's almost pitch black and you can bring it up to be a half decent image? Is that great? Yes, it is. But is that the way you should be taking photos and video? No. So please, I'm encouraging people that it doesn't matter if you shoot JPEG, you shoot RAW. Be honest with you, as long as you get it 90% right in camera, it shouldn't make any difference in your editing and the end result of the photo or video. It should look still fantastic. Please take your time to get your settings right and be patient with yourself. And if that means you need to add some lighting, then add some LED lighting or flash. If that means you have to put some filters on in order to suppress the highlights, etc., by all means do that. And you take your time, you do all that. JPEG, RAW, dynamic range or not, shouldn't make any difference to your image. Remember, you want to minimize the editing, not maximize it. So please don't rely on your camera's dynamic range. Rely on getting the camera adjusted correctly so you're shooting it correctly at the first place. So thank you for bearing with me on those tips and tricks and minor comments. I would like to now, we're going to phase over to talking about tripods, and I'll expand the image now. We're going to zoom out to maybe 30 millimeters focal length. Right now we're at 50 equivalent. So we're going to open it up a bit, and I'll change the background setup just so that we can see everything I'm demonstrating, because I'm going to need a wider screen shot to extend these tripods out and demonstrate them to you. But please bear with me and listen to this stuff. I know it might sound a little bit ordinary, tripods, monopods, who cares, but believe me, there's some very interesting tips and tricks in there, and they can make all the difference to your quality, your photo, and the overall experience you're having. So the last thing I want to do is make your photos and video experience tedious, very hard and dangerous. If you can safeten things up, make sure you choose the right equipment for the right job, you'll have a much more positive experience, and the end result will be you'll have some beautiful photos and video. So please, I hope you're looking forward to seeing all that information about tripods coming up. I will also say this though, that all these tripods and ball heads, they very often have Allen key adjustments in order to tighten them down. And there's nothing worse than getting out on site and then not having your little kit of Allen keys with you, and you've got to take a ball head off and put fluid head on, and all of a sudden you can't get the fluid head or ball head off because you've tightened it on with Allen keys underneath, and now you don't have the Allen keys with you to loosen them. So I think we've all done that, but just a little kit like this is all you need. Put it in a little wrap of a bag or something so they're not scratchy or anything, and you've always got all the Allen keys you need to make sure you can make all the adjustments you want on your ball heads and your fluid heads and so on. So thank you very much for putting up with that too. So have a great time watching that. So thanks for joining me here. We're just on a segment now where we're going to be talking about tripods. Now, tripods, monopods, ball heads can sound all a little boring in comparison to cameras and lenses and various different actions that we could do as a photographer, but don't misunderstand their importance. They are extremely valuable and we really want to get this right. So there are so many varieties of combination of light stands, monopods, tripods, all sorts of accessories now, even combination tripod monopods, that the variety is incredible. But you really want to make sure you get the right choice for the equipment you're using and of course the scenario in which you're shooting in. Now obviously there's a different gear you're going to use in a studio setup where you have a controlled environment and a flat floor and everything's safe, as to what equipment you're going to use out in the field with landscape photography or wildlife, and also of course if you're moving around doing such things as portraiture and you're roaming around in an area in a park, again you need something more light and portable. So everything has its use. There's nothing wrong with any of the equipment, but let's isolate, of course, together exactly what we should be using in what particular area. And this has nothing to do with exact brands, has nothing to do with exact formulas, whether it's a carbon fiber unit or an aluminium unit or even a plastic unit. Really what we're referring to here is just getting the appropriate style or type of gear for the application. And I'm going to do my best to show you in this room, but I understand, of course, tripod gear is very large and bulky. It extends very high and wide, and I'm going to struggle to show you every detail here in my room on this little table. I've tried to go a little bit wider in the shot. I usually shoot at 50 mil. Now I've got the equivalent of about 30 millimeters because I'm trying to get more of the room in and give you more of a view. So it's not as tight, but you'll see a little bit more. I was actually going to try and shoot it out on the veranda. Unfortunately, my neighbours were not convenient. They were just coming and going and banging doors and yelling, and it was unbelievable. There was so much external noise going on outside, it would have been just ridiculous. So I gave that away. I've come back into the room. Hopefully we'll make a good go of it here. So what we're going to start off on, I'm going to talk to you about the most elementary stuff first and what application it has. And is it useless or is it valuable? And so the first thing I'd like to show you is something that's a very modest little tripod arrangement here. This is actually made of plastic. You can get them out of aluminium and steel, but it's just a modest little tripod. And the idea of this is it's just very portable. You can hold it in your hand. It's pretty useful for vlogging. You've got your camera there. You know, you can vlog yourself. It is all adjustable, so it has all these different adjustment settings. It's easy to screw something in and out of, so it's quite quick and easy to use. And of course, if you just want something simple to utilize, where it's quick to pop out, you've got your camera, you put it on a bench top and you've got a vlogging style arrangement, then that can be just perfect for that application. So you want a lightweight camera, you want something like, a little Nikon Z50 or something like that, or a ZFC as I'm filming on now, or even smaller micro four thirds camera is also very useful for that application. So in context, these sort of things are pretty terrific for what they're used for, and that is for vlogging and or just quick and simple and lightweight setups on a bench or a desk. Obviously you're not going to use them on a floor because they're too low down. The one application they do have for if you're going to use them low down on a floor is if you're doing something like filming a cat or dog or some wildlife animal and you want a tripod that's extremely low to the ground. So if you're not sure you're ever going to use it, you can have this sort of thing almost in your pocket or in your camera bag because it collapses down so small. And then when you want to use something down on the ground at a low level, have a nice steady shot or filming some animals, birds or cat and dog playing around on the ground, that can be very useful for that, providing you've got a nice lightweight camera, of course. because regardless of what they're made of, or really even what size these little travel things are, they do topple over quite easily with a knock. So they are susceptible to being bumped over. So as long as you've got a light camera on there, they're fine. They're no issue at all, and they can be quite useful. So we'll just put this one away for now. The next thing that people use for example, not so much for camera gear and filming, but for light stand. So I've got various lights I'm using right now. I've got a light behind me as a backlight, gold light. I've got some white lights up here on the bench, and very often you can use a light stand for that if you're in this sort of an arrangement. Now I'm in like a studio arrangement where I'm in a room, I got a steady floor, there's no distractions, there's no people coming and going. So something like a light stand, which I have here, a light stand can be quite useful. Now what are the advantages of a light stand? Well, basically it's because they compact up nice and small and light. That's one advantage they have. They don't have a big footprint in the floor. So when I'll try and do my best to open this up for you, just give you an idea. But as you see, it's like a little cantilever effect. And when you've got them opened up, they don't have a very large footprint on the floor like a tripod does. Remember, a tripod is coming up from up here, and they come out very wide in a 45-degree angle, or they can, and it becomes very wide and very like a trip hazard, if you like. With these things a bit more compact in their volume and size, and they fold up nice and easy and quick. And for something simply as an LED light panel that's of a modest weight, they're very useful for that. Would I use it for photography and videography? No. This is purely just an apparatus stand. You can use them for microphones. You can buy very simple little boom poles for them, and they're a quick and simple accessory to put on. I'll show you a photo or two of those. And they just clip on, screw on very quickly, and then you can have your microphone extended out or a light exactly where you want it, say backlighting or something reaching behind someone. So they do have their function and use. I've used them many times, and I think I've got about 6 of these of various sizes. So this is probably the smallest one I have. Of course, I brought this out because it's convenient in the video, because I don't have any small area to show you. But I have much larger, much stronger ones than these for the studio style work with lighting. And they work fine. But now I've actually moved away from a lot of these. They just sort of sit there in the garage gathering dust now. I hardly ever use them. I tend to have moved on to using tripods for pretty much everything now. So let me just put that one away. And what I do is I'll use tripods. The reason I want to use a tripod now rather than light stand is because I like the fact that I can use it, yes, in a studio as well, but also for uneven ground. So let's say we're in a scenario where I'm going to park and the ground's a little topsy-turvy and lumpy and bumpy. Well, you can adjust a tripod to suit the environment. So what am I talking about? Well, I'll just get my little tripod here out. This is actually the smallest actual tripod I have, but just to illustrate, it's a little travel tripod. And what's the advantage of this one here? Well, the beauty of it is here that if you've got uneven ground, so I'll just illustrate here, and one leg can sit up and there might be a rock, or it might be a tree stump. And now you can put that there on the tree stump and you can still make it straight and steady and stable without it worrying about it falling over and being damaged. And of course all the legs are adjustable and the height is adjustable, and it's very quick and simple to use. So I do like the idea of tripods in general over the light stands because of the fact that they're very usable when you have them out in the wild, and you can't always guarantee you've got stable ground. So, as we're talking about these light stands, the next effort up from that would be a cheap tripod setup like this. Now, this is actually a very cheap packaged one. It's a plastic unit, and it has a very simple little trigger style, almost like a gun, ball head on it. Now, this is actually a fantastic little unit for when you're going into water. So very often I'll do like landscape photographies, and I know I'm going to dip the thing in the water in order to get the shot and angle I want. And being all plastic, there's nothing there to rust or bog up or get in any trouble or corrode. So in that way, it's sort of a very convenient unit for that reason. But it is a bit cheap and nasty. I mean, I bought this whole thing online secondhand for $100. Came with the tripod and the ball head and delivered to me. And so, look, it was very inexpensive and very functional for what I use it for. But look, it is not going to be used for professional use. It's just used for my fun activities when I really need something that can get knocked around, and if the thing gets broken and falls over or whatever, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it because it was $100 in total anyway. So there's a budget unit. Does it function? Yes. Do I use it? Yes. But I use it in the appropriate applications for the circumstance. When there's going to get water, may get dirty and banged around. It could get knocked around, I don't know. So if I'm not sure of where I'm going to be going with it and how secure and safe it could be, because it's rough terrain, I might take this along just because I can afford to get it damaged and not lose any sleep over it. Would I recommend it to anyone as their first tripod? Absolutely yes. These lightweight, inexpensive tripods are a great way of introducing yourself into the system without committing too much money. You can see if the size is right for you. You can have a play around and see whether or not you think it's the right application, strength or options, whether you like the ball heads or not. And if you don't like them, well, what have you lost? They're $100. You know, you could probably get that back on the second-hand market anyway. So nothing wrong with buying an inexpensive tripod, but I tell you what, when you've got a really good one, you know you've got a really good one, and you'll love the experience. So from that level, there is the next level up again, and I'm going to go back to this unit here, which is my lovely little tripod that I use as travel. So this is a INOREL, and it's a KT 254C. So just go over that again. INOREL is the brand. You can see it here, INOREL. The registration is KT254C. Now this particular model isn't what's so important, but I love the fact that it's very lightweight. Still goes to a good height of around 1.7 meters, and I can put this tiny little ball head on, and that gives me enough strength for doing my landscape photography, etc., or some wildlife shots when I need to, astro even if I had to, but it's just easier to travel around. See, it's a carbon fiber unit, so it's that high-tech material. It's extremely strong but very light. I bought this one because look, it is very lightweight. It goes down to these quite thin poles, but it starts off at a decent robustness, and I like the fact that it has a very, very high quality fitting feel, but at a very budget price. So this one here is the INOREL brand, is like a budget Chinese brand, and there is a more upmarket brand, very similar, almost identical, and that one's called a bit higher quality, I would imagine, and that's called Lee Froto. Now I have a lot of Lee Froto products. I have a lot of these like extension tubes from Lee Froto, carbon graphite composite. I have even this monopod, for example, is a Lee Froto one. That's amazing. I'll go into that one a little later. But this one here, I'm saying that the INOREL brand is, I would say 90%, if not more, almost identical, but at half the cost. So Lee Froto is a very good brand. Don't worry about that. Lee Froto is a beautiful product and a high quality. But equivalent size for this would be $500 Australian. And if I bought this one as a INOREL, I'm getting it for $250. So at half the cost, but 90% as good, I find that very good value for money. So I'm highly recommending this brand and product because I think you're actually going to do all right with it. I wouldn't be surprised you'd love it every bit I do. It does have one other interesting feature. Now, as I said, this is my travel landscape sort of photography unit because it weighs next to nothing. Total here with the ball head's about 1 kilo. That's very light, 2 pounds. So it's very travelable. You can put it in your little camera bag, or you put it in your satchel. They give you a little satchel. Let me show you. Every time I buy one of these graphite composite units, they give you these magnificent little pouches, and of course they've got zips and padding, little pockets to put your accessories in if you want to put filters or your wallet and keys. They zip up very nice to make everything safe and secure. And you put them inside, of course, they're all padded. They come with a strap as well to carry. You can sling that over your shoulder and know that your expensive graphite composite gear is all protected, it's bump proof, and it's all contained. And also it's easy to carry around too. So they give you these free. You're not buying these extras. They come with the kit, and I'm very impressed. And another thing they come with, which I think is really worth mentioning, apart from that bag they come with, they will always come with the raw accessory here. I'll just show you actually a raw one so you understand, because that's got accessories on it. But they will provide you one of these extension poles appropriate for the size of the unit. So this is quite a skinny unit. You would get this one here, a skinnier item. If you buy a mid-range size one, you get a mid-range extension tube. And this one here is for my heavier duty tripod. And this one here is a magnificent unit because I like the fact that it's got a big head on it for your ball head, or if you're going to use something like this fluid head here, you can too. And it's got 3/8 thread at the bottom and the 3/8 on the top, so it's nice and sturdy and strong. And the fittings work really well. When you put these things up and down and you tighten them up, they feel really robust and strong. You've got a lot of confidence. Now remember, this comes with the kit. You're not buying that extra. So you get that, you get your extension tube to get a little bit more height when you want it, you get your camera bag, you get Allen keys, you get various little clips and accessories, like for example in here, you will see that it has a little swivel clip, a little satchel there to hook bags. So you can hook your camera bag on that, give it a little extra weight and get a bit of stability. So they're just like freebies you get when you buy these as a kit. Always buy them as that sort of kit because they're no more extra, and you just get all this great value. So I was very impressed with that. This ball head, you can buy them with their ball head that they provide for you, and they're great ball heads. I just happen to have so many ball heads at home. I just bought the unit on its own without the ball head because I save a little bit of money, and because I have like, I don't know, a dozen at least ball heads, the last thing I needed is one more. So I bought, you can buy the kit with just the tripod, or you can buy it with also a decent ball head as well. It's up to you and your needs, what you need, but either way you're not going to be disappointed. But I do love the idea they give you a quality padded camera bag, tripod bag, and that's magnificent. So I love that. One other feature with this particular unit, and again we're referring to a particular model, this is the KT254C. Now if you get this particular little travel lightweight tripod, they have one magnificent feature which I didn't even really think about when I purchased it, but later on I got to see it and I thought, wow, that is actually amazing. You may notice that one of these legs of the three has padding on it, foam, sort of for a grip. That's fair enough. Did you know that if you unscrew that, and it's the only leg that unscrews, if you can unscrew that, and unscrews very quickly, it's threaded in there, just put that down carefully. This is actually a monopod. So they give you, in amongst the tripod, a monopod as well. And of course you can very quickly screw on a ball head onto that. So if you wanted to have a ball head on this, excuse me, there we go. It's quite a large ball head for this sort of an item, but it does the job. So there we go, just put that on nice and tight. And now you can have yourself a wonderful little monopod with a ball head, so you've got some motion and movement if you want to do with that. So I think that's a great idea that they give you a monopod in with the tripod for travel. So you're not having to bring 2 or 3 different items with you and fumble around with different units. All you have to do is unscrew one arm and all of a sudden you've got a tripod or a monopod or whatever you want, all in the one unit, and that just makes it really awesome value. And the screwing them together, again, putting it together is very simple. It feels good. When you put it together, it doesn't feel cheap and nasty like it's going to break or you know, fall apart. It slots in there very strong. It has a little cover to keep, so when you're putting it in, it's like a ball and socket, and it's very strong. You're screwing it in there nice and tight, and you've got the grip, of course, the foam, which means you can grip it in there nice and tight and fasten it without tools, because you can get a good grip on it. But there we go, see that? You've got yourself a tripod, you've got yourself a monopod. It's lightweight and versatile and extremely strong. You know, I think it's got like 10 layers of graphite composite in these. They're very robust for their size and weight. And as I say, this thing weighs in total, I think, around 1 kilogram or 2 pounds US, and I think it's awesome. So I love this tripod. I wanted to show you through that. And that feature, it's a great feature, isn't it? And especially when you also get these extension tubes as well with it, makes it very handy for extra height if you should ever need that. So apart from that one, the next thing I'd like to show you when we're talking about tripods is this one. Now this is almost exactly the same thing. This is an NRL as well, only because they're great value for money. You can get this, as I say, in a Lee Photo brand or any other brand you like for a graphite composite material. It's a great tripod. This is strong though, this is the difference. See, this one here is a lightweight. If you have a look at the leg thickness, I think you can tell there that they're dramatically thicker. This one is literally twice the weight and twice the strength. So this is where we're talking about video use as well as photography. And you notice here that I have a fluid head on it. It's the Manfrotto 500 series, and that's a great ball head, fluid head I should say, for when you want to do nice, smooth, pan and tilt, a video, doing your birding or wildlife animals, even sports action, anything you like. This is a great package. Now, this was purchased separately, the fluid head, Manfrotto fluid head, 500 series, but the tripod itself, the NRL, and again it's a KT324C. So K2324C, this is the heavier duty version. There is one more heavier than this. I think it's a 364. And that's super heavy duty and really robust. Not unlike this big unit up here. So it's very, very strong, but way too heavy and awkward for me to carry around if I'm doing random photography in a park or, you know, a function like a wedding. I don't want anything that bulky and heavy. It's just not necessary. But this one will certainly do your job. If you're using cameras as I am, mirrorless cameras on the Nikon system. It's more than strong and sturdy enough for taking these. I find it very good. It's, again, quality of the unit is great. This one, again, does have this foam handle, but because this is actually not a travel orientated tripod, it's more of a general purpose strong one. This does not screw out and it doesn't become a monopod. A little bit sad it didn't, but it just doesn't, because that's not the concept of this. This is more about robustness and studio use, and you want something that's very sturdy and strong and robust for heavier gear. So if I'm taking, say for example, this Z9 and I've got it with a decent sort of a zoom lens, then I want something like this, not a little travel one. Because I'm not going to be confident I'm going to get a sturdy shot with video. You need some weight and stability. This has definitely got that. As you can see, the legs are vastly thicker, very robust and strong. And I like the mechanism. I like these twist locks rather than the clips. The twist locks, I think, give you a much greater feeling of security that you've done them up properly and they're not going to slip. It's very tactile. Another beautiful feature of all these tripods, these graphite carbon ones, especially from the NRL system, and I know Lefrodo do the same thing, is they have the leg system here where you can pop it out and you can adjust it in any way you like. So you can have the things come out almost at right angles. And now you can get this super, super low. So if you were doing photography where, excuse me, I'm just fumbling around a bit here, I've limited in space. If you wanted to do some photography on birds or animals down low, you know, filming some rabbits and cats and dogs on the ground, you can make this big heavy unit extremely low profile and get it right onto the ground level, which gives you that magnificent option of taking your video and photos nice and sturdy, stable. You can actually walk away from the camera, come back. It's not going anywhere. That's super strong and super sturdy. And of course, the more you extend the legs, the more sturdier it is. But even at this rate here, with just the single arrangement all compacted in, this is an extremely sturdy and strong unit. And look how low it gets. It's literally 2 inches off the ground. So that's magnificent for those low profile shots, particularly birds on water. So just highly recommending this, because it adjusts in multiple different ways. You can click it. There we go. And you can see here the options you get. And you can have it like a conventional tripod now, as you can see, like this. And you just adjust the legs as you wish them. There we go. And you can have it at any height and angle that you like. So they're all fully adjustable. I think it's magnificent. It's a great system. And you know, like if you're out in the pinch and you're out doing your videography and photography and you needed a monopod more than you needed a tripod for speed and quickness, you know, you can always just extend one leg. You don't have to extend all three all the time. And if you extend one and tighten it up, that's actually a really cool monopod that works extremely well. So you really, every tripod you buy is a monopod as well if you want to use it that way. Now, why is it that I can do this and you can't really do this comfortably with a conventional tripod? And I'll tell you exactly why. What is an interesting feature about this design and why I've chosen this concept of tripod. You will notice if you have a look in the center there is no center column. A lot of tripods have a center column that slide up and down for height adjustment. Now that might seem like a great idea, except for when you want to get down low. When you want to get down very low, as I showed you before, where it's squatting the table and you've got a pole through the middle, you can only get about a foot off the ground because then it hits the pole. You can't bring that all the way up all the time. Some do, but a lot don't, and it can be very inconvenient. The beauty of this item is you can get them down so low, and secondly, because there's no center column, see how they triangulate and they get in very, very tight? So it's very compact. It's actually a lot smaller in a bag than a conventional tripod because it doesn't have that annoying center column pulling it out into a triangle. It keeps everything compact and tight and makes it a smaller unit in the bag. So I'm very, very excited about these three-legged tripods with no center column. I think they're really a bonus, and I highly recommend getting this sort of an item because I think it's worth an upgrade. So they're not actually that much more expensive than a conventional tripod. Conventional tripod might be $250. These things might be $300 in comparison. Worth every cent to pay those extra couple of % in order to get something that's going to last you a lifetime and be so versatile. The last thing I want to talk about in context with tripods and so on is the monopod. Now I have a monopod here. This is actually the Lefrodo monopod. Now let me just get my glasses because I can't read this fine print with without my glasses on because that's tiny printing. Leofrodo MP365C. 365C. This is more of the heavy duty monopods. And the reason I've got a heavy duty monopod is because I do a lot of birding. And when I'm doing birding, I've got like the Z9, I've got a 150 to 600mm zoom lens. It weighs quite a lot. It's probably 3 to 4 kilos worth of gear, and I need something that'll hold that up sturdily and I can be confident. And this is exactly what this is. So it compacts reasonably small, actually. It's quite good in its compaction. I'm just going to illustrate something for you so you understand where I'm coming from in a minute. So I'll just unscrew that. That is actually an optional extra that I have with the camera. Let's see if I can get that out in one piece. Yes, I can. Okay. So this is actually here. Sorry. Yes, here we go. I see what I've done wrong. Just bear with me because I want to get this right for you. So with this, they come in with these screw-in little rubber feet, or you can, buy other options as well, but I like these little rubber stoppers. And that just keeps it smooth and quiet and stops it scraping the floor and makes it sort of, doesn't harm anything. So people are a bit sensitive about their flooring. You're not going to damage anything with that rubber stopper. So that's actually a pretty good system. It's a very strong and robust monopod, as you can see by the thickness there of the legs. It's hugely powerful, and this will hold up, 20 kilos of gear. It's very, very strong. So I've got that for my birding and wildlife application where you have something small and tidy. You can just strap it to your side. You see I've got a little ring here on it. That's so I can put clips on and put that onto my belt, or on I can use a camera strap and put it over my shoulder. And it's just light, small, and doesn't interfere with my general activities. And when I want to use it, it's there. And if I don't use it at all, it was never really a burden. So that's a great little system here. I do like a robust monopod. If you're going to get one, don't get a cheap, flimsy, little weak monopod. Try and get something of substance. Graphite composite is great because that way you've got something that's lightweight as well as strong. As you can see, I've put a nice Arco Swiss mounted plate on so that the camera's got some sliding width there for balance, and that makes everything much more convenient and handy. I like the Arco Swiss system. I think it works really well, but don't let that put you off. Whatever system it's got, you can always adjust them and modify them. So on here you may see I've got a very robust tripod here. Now this is actually an aluminium tripod. It's not graphic composite at all. This is the Actus. It's actually a Vanguard is the brand. Vanguard. The model is Actus 323AT. And this is a stupidly strong tripod. Like, I bought this particularly for studio work with heavy video equipment. At the time when I bought this and the fluid head on top, the 502 from Manfrotto, I was using a Sony FS7, which is a big professional camera, and it had I think it was a, might have been a 28 to 130mm zoom on it, f4. So it was a big lens, and it was a power zoom lens. And so that was an awesome package, but I needed something robust and strong that would take it. Now this here weighs, the fluid head and the tripod together weigh about 5.5 to 6 kilos. That's heavy. When you consider that this one is about 2.5 kilos, and that one's 2.5 times that at nearly 6 kilo, that's very heavy. But the reason I got it was for strength. So it's horses for courses and context. When you want something light for traveling and you're only doing your little bird photos or happy snaps on landscape photography, then something light and compact like that is perfect. But you're doing big gear, like I'm showing up here with the Z9 and a decent Tamron zoom, you need something that'll, when you want to maneuver it around and you want to pan and tilt, you want it to be nice and smooth and steady. So once again, I'd like to thank you all for your patience with me tonight. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got some decent and useful tips and tricks. I had fun making it. As I say, I love to share whatever experience and knowledge I can have that's useful to you. You're always welcome to talk to me and ask me any questions you like or offer any suggestions for videos. I'm happy to help you out as I can. So my gear and equipment is constantly changing. I'm always buying and selling new stuff, so it's never a threat to me to look at a different aspect for you. So thank you very much for your patience and time. You have a lovely evening, and I really appreciate you joining me today.